All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Evening with Honors event for the University of Rhode Island. My name is Steve Ferguson. I'm one of the admission representatives at the University of Rhode Island, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to this exciting event that we have going on. So I do want to make sure that you understand who's in the room to help you out answering questions as we go along. So I'm going to kick things over to my colleague, Piotr, real quick for an introduction as well.
Thank you, Steve. I wanted to welcome everyone here today. I don't know how many of you are actually international students, but this is my area of expertise. I represent the University of Rhode Island's international admission. I've admitted a bunch of you, so I'm very happy to be here, ready to answer any questions, to send them over in the chat area. Thank you and welcome.
And so as we move forward, along with Piotr, I will also be checking out the chat room as you have any questions. But right now, real quick, I'm going to run through the agenda of things you can expect to hear from us tonight. So after I finish speaking, I'm going to turn things over to the Vice Provost of the University of Rhode Island, Dr. Dean LaButte. He's going to give a welcome on behalf of the university. And then we're going to hear from Dr. Karin DeBruin. She is the Director of the Honors Program at the University of Rhode Island. She's going to provide an overview of the entire department. Following Dr. DeBruin, I'm going to moderate a panel presentation with 3 of our wonderful University of Rhode Island honors students who are currently going through the program, so you can hear directly from them about their experiences so far in the program. Following our current students, we're going to hear from Dr. Carl Aspelund, who's a faculty member at the University of Rhode Island, and he's going to provide to you all a brief lecture so you can get an understanding of what you could expect would you be to take an honors class at the University of Rhode Island. Following Dr. Aspelund's lecture, we're going to have time for just an open Q&A. Possibly for things that didn't get covered during the session or anything that has come up that you want to get answered this evening. At that point in time, we're going to take a brief break. I expect the beginning part of the session to last about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. And then following that break, we're going to welcome Dr. Andy Simmons from the URI Pre-Health Advising Program. For any students who might be interested in pursuing advanced degrees in medicine, either going on to med school or dental school or pre-physician's assistant, anything like that, Dr. Simmons will give an overview of that process at the University of Rhode Island and how that would function. So that's the agenda. Those are the things you can expect to hear. Again, if you have any questions as the evening goes along, feel free to drop them in the chat. The staff members that I just mentioned will be there monitoring stuff and happy to answer any questions that you may have. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to Dr. LaButte. Dr. LaButte.
Thanks, Steve. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the University of Rhode Island Honor Session. Before we begin, if people could put in the chat, I'd love to hear for students your first name, where you're from, and what you're majoring in. All right, so you have 5 seconds to do that. Ready? First name, where you're from, and your major. And as people are coming, this is great. I want to say that we've got folks joining us from Arizona. I'm seeing Maryland, Connecticut, Philadelphia. I see biology majors, marine biology. We've got people from Wisconsin and Texas and South Korea, United Kingdom. This is fantastic. And the reason why I wanted to do this is that you represent over 26,000 applicants that we will have this coming year. URI has once again experienced a record number of applications from people all over the world. And it's so amazing with our 100 academic programs and minors, as you can see, whether it be Jack from Rhode Island to Anya from Massachusetts to Abby over there in New Jersey. It's really great to have you with us tonight. So wanted to talk a little bit about the University of Rhode Island. So as you see behind me in my picture, we have a beautiful campus, right? And what's amazing about our campus is, watch what happens when I do this. Let's see if I can do this awkwardly. We are in the beautiful ocean state of Rhode Island. So for those who have not been to Rhode Island and seen this, this is just a few miles away from campus. And it's actually wonderful at the University of Rhode Island. We have a beautiful, safe campus. We've invested over $1 billion in new buildings and facilities over the past couple of years. If you don't believe me, I'll even show you an example. So for instance, this is an example of one of our newer buildings, etc. And it's great. Second thing about that is academic programs. And tonight you're going to learn what is special about our amazing honors program with a fantastic director, amazing faculty and students. What I love about URI is you are all bright students, and congratulations on being selected into our wonderful honors program. But did you know that over 10% of our students can use their AP and EEP college credit earned in high school and graduate from URI early? So from the parents on here, it's a great way to save money. And I'm saying that, by the way, as a parent of 2 children who attended URI. My son was involved in honors. He's a chemical engineering major with a minor in innovation and entrepreneurship. But if you think we're letting you get out of here with just an undergrad degree, you're going to learn a little bit later on about our amazing graduate programs. Believe it or not, you can actually start at URI and start your graduate program in what's known as a 4+ accelerated bachelor's to master's. So it's really exciting to have you all with us today. But what makes us special that I hope that you'll experience tonight, and hopefully by visiting us in the spring and others, it's the people that make URI special. And as you look at colleges and you're so talented and you have many options, I hope you'll get to know some of the amazing people of URI and say, hey, are these people I'd like to work with? Are these faculty I'd love to engage with? Are these other students I'd like to challenge myself with? And as you can see from this massive list, you'll be experiencing students from all over the globe. So really want to, one, congratulate you on your acceptance. Thank you for joining us today. For the parents, congratulations, and supporters joining your student tonight. We can't wait to work with you as well. And I did Rody, and the response there is Rams, Rams, Rams. So Steve, I'll let it back to you, and have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dean. We appreciate it. And now at this point, I'm going to turn things over to the director of the honors program, Dr. Karin DeBruin, for an overview of the entire department. So as Dr. DeBruin is presenting, if any questions pop up, you can feel free to drop them in the chat. And if she doesn't answer them directly during her presentation, we'll make sure that we get to them a little bit later. So right now, I'll turn things over to Dr. DeBruin. Karin?
Hi, everyone, and congratulations to everyone here for getting into the honors program, for your interest in the honors program. We are very excited to share the honors program with you this evening, and I'm going to just share my screen quickly. Just give me 1 second. It looks like the screen share is working, so that's great. And if he shows the open, okay, so we're good. All right, so honors at URI. Well, you're all coming into an exciting time we are shifting our focus to change making, and we're very much, all of you likely check the box that you understand that we're an intentional community of individuals from a diverse array of backgrounds and perspectives. You've read this whole thing. And that you're interested in change making and gaining the talents and the skills and the experience needed to become a change maker in this world. Why are we focusing on change making? The big reason, I'm a parent of 2 children, and you know, the problems that we see that we across all generations are facing, they're big problems, and they're hurtling towards us, and we have to be able to do something, and especially equip our students coming into the universities with concrete things in order to enact change for the better. And so what we're going to propose to you is that that you enter into this program that we're calling Planet Honors. Planet Honors because we care about our planet. We're also a different planet. We think differently. We do things differently. And the 4 different programmatic outcomes that you will be concentrating on are creative problem solving, social innovation, recognizing interconnectivity and the interconnected nature of things, and policy advocacy. Because when we think about it, like I've talked now to many different people from all different backgrounds here at the university and outside of the university in different organizations. And when I say what is one of the most important things that students can be equipped with in order to go out and to affect change in their communities, the very first thing that I hear inevitably is be able to advocate for policy, elaborate policy, influence policy. So we find that to be a very important skill that you'll get. And it doesn't matter if you're an English major. I saw so many different majors go through the chat. It doesn't matter if you're an English major, if you're an engineering student, whether you're a pharmacy student, nursing, whatever your background is, you will gain these skills in our honors program. You will also have the opportunity to go more in depth into your own majors, but we will be equipping you with these change-making skills. So let me just see here. The next, so what is the honors program requirements? I'm not going to bore you with that too much right now, because I don't know what your baseline understanding is of the university in terms of credits, but basically you have to take the equivalent of 6 courses, if you will. So a course that's an introductory course, sort of a higher level course, what we're calling our colloquium course, an honors elective, honors project, and then an additional honors seminar. We're going to require, not of your year, but the following year, that all students entering the honors course take this foundations course. Right now, we strongly encourage you to take this course. It's not yet rid of all of our honor students, but we have roughly 120 students, I think, right now in this foundations course. It ran for the first time this semester, and you can see them here in the Northwoods, which is just near campus. They've also been out. They've been out in the like working with composting initiatives and at the Narragansett Bay looking at microplastics. But it's a course that not only onboards you into our honors program, but it's a course that also takes you through, like I said, 3 different modules where you get your hands dirty and you understand what local manifestations of global problems look like, and you begin to understand how you can think about having an influence on your local community through design thinking skills and through experiential education and project-based learning. It's a really incredible course. You can learn more with a QR code. There was a wonderful article that was written about it. I highly recommend that all students take this course. Then we have another thing that distinguishes our honors program here at URI, which is different from, I would say, even I mean, a lot of different honors programs and colleges, certainly in the Northeast, if not, on the East Coast, is that we have what's called the URI Honors Colloquium. This year was our 60th honors colloquium, so it's been running for 60 years. And the theme this year was Business for the Common Good. It's a 9-week series, if you will. It's the premier lecture series at URI. And this honors colloquium, you're able to engage with the international and national experts on topics. And this coming fall, it's going to be on democracy. So if you're a political science student, if you're interested in questions of democracy, as you all know, it's going to be an election year. This is going to be a huge colloquium. It's hugely important. And if you're a freshman, we may be able to get you into this colloquium course. It's usually open to second-year students and above. But if you are a freshman and you're interested, like I said, in political science, contact us and we can try and get you into this particular course. But like I said, it's on Tuesday evenings. You can actually go to our URI Honors Colloquium website and take a look at some of these speakers. We've recorded all of the speakers that have allowed us to record them. There's also an honors colloquium course where you interact with these speakers that come into the class at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, or depending on when the course is, and you get to talk with them. And inevitably, what's fascinating is that the speakers, again, these are international and nationally renowned experts. They inevitably say how engaging the conversations are with our honor students. It's an incredible experience, really. Then you're going to have the opportunity to do an honors project. And I can't say enough about these honors projects. They seem a little daunting at first because you can work on literally whatever you would like. And so if you're part of a research lab and there's a question that's of particular interest to you, yeah, you can work on you can work on that question. But I'd like to show you just maybe 2 minutes, maybe not that long, but of an honors project of a student who he completed it in December of 2023. And it'll give you an idea of what the honors projects look like. So hopefully, Steve, let me know if you can't hear.
We're not hearing anything, if anything's playing.
Darn, I'm hearing a little bit of music in the background, but I'm not hearing any narration.
Yeah, there's no narration yet, but the narration will come in just a second.
Padre, indipendencia, un omaggio. Ever since I was young, I've had a great fascination with wood, water, trees, and history. I have always been moved by the shapes that nature has to offer. The leaves of trees, powdery snow drifted high into banks by swirling winds. The shape of a wave as it swells and crashes upon a pebbled beach. My father is a wood sculptor, among many other things. As a child, I'd often watch as he revealed from thick boards of reclaimed pine the forms of whales, seals, and other creatures of the sea. The curves and corners would slowly take shape, the breeze spraying wood chips across the barnyard, dusting my father's beard and eyebrows with a fine, fragrant powder. I have a great reverence for trees. I stare at their shapes for hours on end, seeking to gain only a fraction of their wisdom.
So I'm not gonna play the whole video. You can scan the QR code and watch the video yourselves. But what he did essentially was create an Italian Ramere oar, so like when you go to Venice and the Venice boats, those oars that they use to propel the boats. He created his own oar. So he designed it, he researched it, he did the engineering of it, he carved it, and then he's also somewhat of a poet and obviously a videographer, and he made this beautiful video of this oar. And this oar is actually going to hang in our honors in Lippitt Hall, where our honors program is located, and we're very excited to be able to get it. So another things that we offer in terms of the honors program beyond our courses is incredible advising that helps we springboard you into the university through the honors program with our honors advising, getting you into the right classes and helping you sort of navigate not only just the honors program, but also the larger world of the university. But we also springboard you out of the university. And one of the ways that we springboard you out of the university is through our Office of National Fellowships. And so this Office of National Fellowships helps students achieve funding or gain funding for projects, for study, postgraduate study, for travel, for internships, experiential learning with the State Department, for example, or in Washington, D.C. And last year, I believe this office helped students attain it was over $1 million, I think $1,200,000, something like that, dollars in funding in order to pursue their projects. You'll also hear from Dr. Andy Simmons, who will be joining us in a little bit. We also house pre-health professions advising. And similarly, it springboards you out of the university and right into your postgraduate degrees. And we have some honors program perks, if you will. The perks, they're not the advantages for the honors program, but they're the perks. So we have great advising, as I talked about, and it's, we're always available for you. And again, not just for honors specific, it's also life path advising. It's also postgraduate advising. It's also, if you need help just navigating the university advising, we're there for you. You can benefit from early registration, which is huge, especially since it's really hard to get into a lot of classes at URI. especially when you're a first year or second year student. We have a really engaged student ambassador group that creates all kinds of social activities for our honors students. We really find cohort building to be important, and getting you to be part of a community and feel like you're part of community is important. And to that end, we have a wonderful student lounge where there's, it's a great place to hang out with your friends and discuss whatever it is, philosophy, the latest movie, math equations, or whatever you want to discuss. And we include snacks and tea and coffee for you. Those are just a few perks, but the real advantage of the honors program, I'm not sure why it's not, oh, there we go. The real benefits of the honors program at URI obviously are the ones that I've got here. You become a part of a community of like-minded students that are eager to make a difference in this world, and like really eager to make a difference in this world. You can become a change maker. Our honors program is heavily rooted in experiential learning and project-based learning, and also original research. So if you're that kind of student, to forge your own path through these types of learning experiences, we're here for you. I told you earlier that we're focused on change making and on those 4 programmatic outcomes. Once again, those were creative problem solving, social innovation, interconnection, and policy advocacy. We're equipping you with those because we know that once you start to engage in solutions locally, because that's really where you can make the most impact, that you're going to start to feel hopeful and empowered and happy and find joy and friendship in your change-making endeavors. That there's a lot of daunting problems out there, but the road to happiness is also by doing. And so by being part of the solution, you will overcome a lot of the fear and the anxiety that you might have looking forward into the future. You're going to be supported by advisors, teachers, and staff who are all very invested in your success. And we're going to help you become the author of your own journey into a post-URI life. So that's the honors program in a nutshell. Maybe we hear from students and then I can take questions afterwards. Does that sound good, Steve?
Yeah, for sure. That sounds great. And thank you, Karin. So we did have a couple questions that are more logistical in nature as you were going along. And I think I know the answer to these, but if I say something wrong, just yell at me and talk over me and correct me. The minimum GPA required to stay in the honors program, is it a 3.4?
It is indeed a 3.4 GPA, yeah.
Yes. And that's also, so if any of you may have, I don't know, friends who were not extended an invitation to the honors program right away coming out of high school, that is also the GPA needed in order to work your way into the honors program. Because the people in this meeting right now may not be the only people from this class who progressed through the honors program at the University of Rhode Island. Rather, if you have a 3.4 or GPA or better once you're at the university, then you can take any of the honors courses that you like in conjunction with any advising. Karin, something to add there?
Yeah, I'd like to add also that, so that is an important point that you just raised. And additionally, if you all have friends that were accepted to URI or you yourself find yourself in this situation once you get to URI, you may fall under the threshold, the 3.4 GPA threshold. But we're really focused on making changes and helping you become change makers. And so, come and see us, Don't feel like this is like a hard cutoff. What is the most important to me, again, as both an educator and as a parent, is that we're sending off change makers into the world that are going to create a better future for my kids. And so if you dip below that 3.4, but you're a motivated change maker, just kind of stay in conversation with us, okay?
Excellent. Thank you, Karin. And we have also had a few questions about honors housing. We do not have honors housing at the University of Rhode Island. The way that many of our first year students are placed into housing, the default way to be placed, in fact, is to be placed within a living and learning community based upon the academic program to which you were admitted. And we have seen over time that rather than having honors program housing separately for students of all majors, it's actually more academically beneficial for you to be clustered with students who are in your same academic department, students who are taking at least 3 of the same courses as you are during your first semester, and being able to form those study groups within your academic cohort rather than in the honors program right away. So we do not have any separate honors housing at the University of Rhode Island. I've also seen a couple of questions about is the honor, kind of getting at the idea of if the honors program is right for me. Meaning, Karin, I've gotten a couple of questions about, can I do the honors program while I'm a student athlete? Can I do the honors program while I'm in this already academically rigorous major? Can you speak to that idea a little bit?
Yeah, I just responded back to asked about being a student athlete. One of our honor students is the national champion in some sort of biking event, national champion in some sort of biking event. So obviously on the URI cycling team. So yes, I mean, we will work with you. That there is a fair amount of flexibility. As of right now, you're coming into an 18 credit program. It is going to be changing to a 30 credit program, but the 30 credit program is not going to be more, how should I put it, more limiting. It's actually going to be more opening and more freeing for your schedule. But yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's if you've got a rigorous major, we are compatible with all majors on campus. There's not a single major on campus that cannot do the honors program. Sometimes it requires intense planning at the outset. So come and see our advisors like in the very beginning. So that we can map you out, because majors like engineering, for example, are very sort of lockstep. But at the same time, we have agreements with engineering so that their capstone project counts for our honors project, for example. So I saw a question about, is the honors project required? It is required, but in certain instances, we do approve your major's capstone project for the honors project, and we just require that you present your capstone project at our honors conference at the end of the 4th year. So we have a lot of flexibility, and everybody can do the program.
Wonderful, thank you. And I have seen some other questions that are being answered a little bit by our students and other staff as we go along, and I'll circle back to some of those. But I do want to move along with the program, and if there are other things that we don't get to, again, we'll have an open Q&A with Dr. DeBruin and the other students and staff here towards the end of the session. But now I'm going to take over sharing my screen, and we're going to kick it off with the student presentation section, where you will get to hear a little bit about completing the honors program in majors that can even be considered a bit more structured or rigorous, as well as hearing about the variety of some of the honors projects that our students are able to run. So first off, we're going to be hearing from a current student at the university by the name of Yenexa. Yenexa, are you here? Do you want to take yourself off mute and say hi?
Hi, everyone. I'm here.
All right, Yenexa, take it away.
All right, so as Steve already mentioned, my name is Yenexa. I was born and raised in Providence, Rhode Island. I am a sophomore and a political science and communications double major with a double minor in business leadership and psychology. Just so you guys know a little bit more about who I am. Oh, wait, you can go back. Yes. I'm part of the tour guiding team and a few other clubs and organizations around campus. I am in the early stages of completing my honors curriculum, but today I'm going to give you all some insights. Next slide, please. So with the honors program, it comes with a few perks, but one of the biggest things is the way the classes are designed and facilitated. I know that there's a common misconception that honors courses are a lot harder compared to gen eds, but the biggest difference is that honors courses are smaller and more discussion based. So my first semester here, I was in a criminal justice honors course, and I was really nervous because of all the things I've heard, but my professor made it a very comfortable environment to be able to share and discuss in group settings. But sorry, I did forget to mention this. It really is nice to have that smaller class size just because you are able to connect with your classmates, but most importantly, your professors. That is the biggest way that you network here at the university. And now for some more appealing perks. One of my favorites is having access to Lippitt Hall, which is the home to the honors students, and having access to that building 24/7. So if you need a change of scenery and want to get out the library or your room, you do have access to the buildings like mentioned before. They do have study lounges that we can use. And now for my personal favorite perk is having access to early registration for your classes. As a person that despises waking up early, I love being able to pick whatever time of the day I want for the classes that I need. Even though I do always end up picking early classes, but you do have that choice. And warning that registering for classes is a bit hectic, definitely one of the most stressful days for me, at least, of the semester. So having this privilege is really nice. But before I wrap up, I want to leave you all with this. So make sure that you are willing to push yourselves and to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that is it for me. Thank you all so much for listening. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I will put my email and my Instagram if it's easier for you in the chat. And thank you all so much.
Thank you, Yanexa. And just a question that I do get asked a lot of times, and I think some of our students might be thinking themselves, these honors classes that you've taken so far, is it harder than a normal class that you've taken?
So I wouldn't say that they're harder. I think that, like I mentioned before, just the way the classes are facilitated. So you are doing a lot more group work. You are doing those in-class discussions. So for me as a student, I learn best by kind of bouncing off ideas of another person or just being able to talk through a process. And that is what these classes are. It's a lot more talking rather than you could say being talked to. But of course, there are classes, regular gen eds that do this, but it's almost guaranteed for an honors course.
And now for you, again, when you came into the university, you're in your sophomore year, so a little bit experienced by now. But when you came to URI, did you know that you wanted to be a part of the honors program, or is it something you found your way to? And what was that process like?
So I actually had an email that said I was accepted into the honors program, and I asked my what's the name? My counselor, my school counselor. I'm like, what does this even mean? And we kind of went through the process and what came with the honors program. And I was like, this is something I would definitely do, especially because I graduated with high honors in my school. So I was like, I definitely want to put that I graduated with honors in college too. And it was just doing research. I got in contact with my advisor when I first got here. And then from there, I was able to create that schedule.
Beautiful. Thank you, Yanexa. Now, if anybody in the chat has any additional questions for Yanexa, you can feel free to bop them into the chat. I think she'll be staying with us for the duration of the program. Sometimes our students have to run off to other things too, but I think she's made time in her very busy schedule to hang out with you all for the rest of the program. Next up, we're going to hear from our next student, Reva. Reva, are you in the room, able to say hi?
Yes.
Hi, Reva. Go right ahead. You can take it away whenever you're ready.
Hi guys, I'm Reva. So I'm a PharmD major. I'm currently a P1, so that's a junior, so I'm in my third year. I'm gonna try and get my MBA as well, and then I put honors here because I finished the honors program. So technically, I'm the class of 2027 for pharmacy, and I'm from Michigan. We can go to the next slide. All right, cool. So I did my honors project already. I completed this whole program, so I was just going to talk about my project a bit. So I did the pharmaceutical link to food insecurity. One thing I really liked about the project was that you can do it on quite literally whatever you want. It's really free in like your options, which is nice because it doesn't have to relate to your major, because I know a lot of students have interests outside of their major. And so it's nice that you have the opportunity to explore other areas as well. But I was a URI 101 mentor for a food and dietetics class. And through that class, I met Barbara Sweeney, who is the head of the Brody Outpost, which is the food pantry on campus. And so through that, I learned more about the food and dietetics program, just like learning about nutrition as well as its relation to pharmacy. And so I decided to do my project on just how the two relate. So I did an interdisciplinary project between the two fields, and I chose to do a 6-credit project as opposed to the regular 3-credit project. So I spent a bit longer on it and did a little bit more work. But so I did different aspects. I spent in-person time volunteering. So it's some pictures at the top. those are what the roadie outpost looks like inside of our dining warehouses service on campus. And so I spent every Friday there, which was really nice. And I got that hands-on experience as well as doing research. So I would talk to professors, collect data on just like the pharmacy side of it as well. So just learning about different food and drug interactions and some other things I did. Part of the project was, you can see I made like a graph just talking about, that was more for the roadie outpost in general, but just calculating data, like seeing how our students grew and just like the need for a food pantry that we have on campus. Food insecurity is a big issue, and so learning about that. There's a flyer for a drive I did on the bottom left, so I organized a food and clothing drive, so I tried to do that. And then in the bottom middle, I have 2 pamphlets I made. One was more geared towards just the outpost in general, just spreading awareness about it, what it is. The one on the left was more towards pharmacy, so I was learning more towards my major and just learning about different interactions and just things that you should know. So it's more informational. And then the picture on the right was me next to my poster. So every year in the spring, we have the symposium. So that's where you get to stand near your poster and just like present your work. It's really nice because it's not like you have to go up on stage and present, but it's just everyone's standing there and you get to just like chit chat with people walking around, like parents of other students and faculty. So that's nice. And yeah, so that was my project. And then we can go to the next slide. So I know that we were talking about changing the honors program, but I just wanted to talk about how I structured mine. So as a pharmacy major, specifically PharmD, it is a tough curriculum and a lot of your classes are set for you. So I know that's a concern of a lot of students with other majors as well of how to do it. But so from my experience, I came in with a lot of credits from high school. So I had a lot of space in my undergrad classes. So a lot of them I double counted too. So in the fall freshman year, I didn't take anything. Spring, I took Com 100 honors. And then sophomore year and fall, I took Econ 201 honors. Both of those were required classes I had to take. So I just took the honors version of them instead. So not only did they count towards the honors program, but they also counted towards just my general education requirements. And then the spring of my sophomore year is probably my heaviest course load of the honors classes. CMB 311 was honors biochemistry, which again, I had to take for my major anyway. So I just took the honors section of it. 230G was our honors colloquium, and that's another really cool class. So you can take it in the fall when they have guest presenters, but it didn't work for my schedule. So I took the spring one they offered, which was really nice. It was a hands-on interactive class. And then instead of doing, I believe it was like HPR for 11 or 12, I did a 6-credit project instead. So that was the 401 and 402, which was really nice though, because it was independent. So I could kind of work on it on my own schedule and just like take it like flexible as I needed. But also I know other students in the pharmacy program who didn't finish it in 2 years and are going to actually do their honors project like with a professor and are going to do more intense research once they progress in their pharmacy curriculum as well. So they have plenty of time to get that done. But I just wanted to throw this up there with how I did mine. And like Yanexa said, I'm here for questions. So I'll put my email and Instagram in the chat as well. And if you guys have any questions, just let me know.
Thanks, Rita. That was awesome. Now, also, I do kind of want to highlight, especially while your course schedule is sort of up there. This is not typical, right? I would say that I don't
not really.
necessarily see
Yeah.
a lot of students complete their full honors program experience by the end of their sophomore year. So Reva, can you kind of explain why you did that and if it was really more burdensome or if you found it manageable?
Yeah, so honestly, it kind of just worked out the way I did it. I started taking honors classes, not fully committing to the program. I was just going to see how it worked. And then I had space in my schedule, so I ended up deciding to just get it done my sophomore year. But again, like I said, a lot of my other friends who are doing it also within pharmacy are gonna like stretch it out over the course of the years. They did a lot of the summer classes where they double counted those gen eds. But one of those, when you get to those HPR classes that are specifically honors, they have time in your schedule to do that. So a lot of people usually end up taking the 4 years and honestly even do the project like throughout a longer course period. So you can like work on it by yourself, spend even like more than a year on it if that's what you feel. But again, yeah, it's not common. But what I like about the program is that it's very flexible. So everyone can kind of do it a different way and just take the time that they need on it, which I think is nice as well.
And going back to your project real quick, how did you come up with this project? Was it just an interest of yours, or did you start getting involved with the food outpost on campus because you wanted to help out with the honors program project, or how did that kind of start for
Yeah,
you?
so it honestly started, so I was the URI 101 mentor for a food and dietetics class, and that's not my major, but through learning about that as I was helping out the class, I learned about the Rhodey Outpost, which is our food pantry. And then they even talked about like the relation to medicine and like pharmacy. And it was just an aspect that I didn't really explore yet. And it was something that was interesting to me. And so I thought I could tie the two together. And so then I started doing more research on that. And then I started volunteering there as a start for the project, but I still volunteer there like today. So it's like an ongoing thing for me that I didn't just like stop because of the project. So I do like that it introduced me to that as well.
So I think that's important to note as well. So it's not, your honors project wasn't something about which you were already an expert, but rather it was something that you wanted to learn more about.
Yeah,
And
which I thought was
think,
nice as well. Yeah.
yeah, that can be a great way to think about this honors project, is it's really not something that you have to already know, but something you are curious about and would like to deepen your understanding of. So that's a good way to put it.
Because I got to be close with my advisor, who is actually the head of the outpost, and it's just a great way to like build connections with faculty and staff on campus, and like just another trusted adult to have. So that was a good experience as well.
That's awesome. All right, thank you, Reva.
Thank you.
And next, our third and final student that we have joining us this evening before we go over to Dr. Asplund for his lecture is Haley Johnson. Haley, you in the room, you want to say hi, introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Haley Johnson. I'm a senior communicative disorders major here at URI with a minor in psychology, and I'm from Grafton, Massachusetts. So with me in the honors program, I absolutely love the honors program. It's a great way to be in a smaller setting and ask questions and get that peer connection, the staff connection as well. And I'm really excited to actually dive right into my honors project this semester, which I'm looking at funding mechanisms for school-age children who qualify for augmentative and alternative communication devices. So being a communicative disorders major, I'm actually pursuing a graduate education to get my master's in speech and language pathology. And a big part of that is AAC devices. So it's for those who can't communicate in the mainstream way, there's devices that a lot of can actually gain through their public schools and outside of them to communicate with individuals around them. So that's what an AAC device is. And I'm heavily interested in it as my cousin, who you can see on this one side of the screen, has very severe autism and is nonverbal and actually uses one of these devices. So when I was thinking about my honors project, I really wanted to look at how these students are gaining access to them within these schools, because these devices can be anywhere between a couple $1,000s to $50,000. So they are extremely expensive, extremely high tech. And if they're provided through the school, some students can't use them outside the classroom. So I really kind of want to dive a little bit deeper into that and see those mechanisms around that. So I'm really excited. And the honors program has given me the opportunity to work with one of the graduate professors here at URI, which is just another networking opportunity as well to dive into this topic and learn a bit more. So like the previous students have said, I can absolutely leave my email in the chat, and please feel free to ask any questions or reach out in the future.
Now, Haley, a quick question for you. So I'm doing a dangerous thing as someone who's moderating a session. I'm asking a question to which I don't already kind of know the answer. Is this honors project that you're doing? You mentioned you're going to graduate school to become an SLP. Is this honors project something that you're able to use in the grad school application process? Do you think it might benefit you at all through that?
Absolutely. So I've actually officially applied to all of my graduate schools, but there is an entire interview process. And a lot of them actually did ask about my interest in research, both during my undergrad career and during my graduate career. And I was able to touch on this idea that I had and kind of talk a little bit about URI's honors program. And how that has helped me then kind of dig into my own interests and research that way as well. So absolutely, it's a great conversation point for interview questions, but it's also a great way to kind of segue between undergrad and grad, because this is something that I will be seeing throughout the rest of my life as an SLP. So absolutely.
Awesome, thank you. Now, if there are any other questions for any of our students, you can certainly feel free to drop them in the chat. I know that they'll be hanging in here for a little while, and they'll also be available in the Q&A session at the end. But right now, I'm going to thank our students. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to turn things over to Dr. Carl Aspelund, the faculty member who's going to teach to you all as though you are several hundred students in his classroom this evening.
All right. Yes, might be one of the largest classes I've taught, but glad to be here. Glad you're here, and welcome. So yes, and to a previous point, want to make sure that we're clear on the fact that I'm actually going to be telling you about a class tonight rather than teaching you a class, because in the honors method, I would not be just showing slides and talking at you. We would be discussing. We would be in a small group. We would be sitting at a table. So just be aware of the fact that I'm breaking all the rules tonight by talking at you and showing you slides. So shame on me, but here we go. And let me share my screen. And I'm going to tell you about a class called Circular Economies, Policy, Advocacy, and Strategy. So this is a course that is running this spring. It's starting on Wednesday, and it is a new course. I have not taught it before, but it is a topic that is very dear to my heart. And as you heard Karen say earlier, this is something that we emphasize in the honors program, that we are dealing with these local manifestations of global problems. And we deal with them in such a way that we would like students, we would like you to be able to come out of these courses being able to advocate for policy change, for change in the world. We want you to be change makers. Let me tell you a little bit about myself first, because a lot of what I'm going to tell you about the project makes a little bit more sense if you know where it's coming from. And that's always important anyway. When somebody is trying to teach you something, you want to know why they think they can stand there and guide you through a topic. So I started out a career as a designer. I designed costumes, sets, lighting, sound, and such for theater and film for about 20 years. I got involved in textiles and fashion as a result of my fascination with costuming and such. Became a person devoted to the art of design thinking as a result of becoming a teacher in a design school and as a leader in a design studio. And then I got a PhD in anthropology and material culture through my fascination with the work around creating characters through clothing. Why do people behave the way they do? Why do they engage with things in the way they do? What is it that makes us approach the world through the objects around us? And how do we deal with that in terms of understanding our culture and so forth? And I can call myself, I've been called a futurist. I've been called worse things, but I like being called a futurist. And you'll see the outer space thing there on the slide. There's a little spoiler alert. And that's why I can proudly carry that badge. I want to come back to 4 points that Karen showed you earlier. The way this course works, it actually addresses these 4 points about the benefits of being in the honors program. This course will empower the students taking it to make a difference in the world. It's a practical approach to a problem. This is how we want you to become change makers, to give you the tools to be able to go out into the world and be someone who makes a difference. And so doing that, again, it's not just about sitting in a classroom and listening to somebody speak. It's about engaging in a hands-on way with project-based learning, doing original research as you're taking a class. And so we really want you to feel hopeful and empowered when you're engaging with these problems. We have so many problems in the world today. The next 20, 30 years are going to be absolutely crucial. And we want you to be ready for that. And the mantra of honors programs is that we go into subjects broader, we go into them deeper, we grow into them in a more complex way, but not necessarily more difficult. It's just we engage in a deep way. So in this course, we're going to explore the concepts and the pathways and the needs of creating circular economies. A little bit more about that in a second, but ecologically sound economies. And then, because as any designer will tell you, you can have a good idea, but if you can't advocate for that idea, if you can't get people to accept that idea, your idea isn't really worth very much. So we also do we teach you how to do an advocacy campaign. What is the skill in convincing people that this is what we need to do? And so in the course, we'll create these policy advocacy strategies, and we'll have team projects in the course that will actually be presented at an event on Earth Day here on campus to an audience that will include the entire congressional delegation of Rhode Island. We have invited the governor, the president of the university will be there. There will be industry partners from the textile industry in Rhode Island. And so this will have real world consequences. And so the outcomes of this course are defined here. Students coming out of this course will be able to understand what it means to run a circular economy. They'll be able to deal with breaking things down into policy advocacy strategies and be able to propose solutions. And I'll explain the transition from a linear to a circular economy in a moment. But we want you to be able to formulate a well-defined policy, to be able to advocate for this in a senator's office, in an industrialist's office, to your peers, to your parents, to your community, and then to be able to present valid, logical, plans, influence decision makers in these fields. So, enter the lesson. What is a circular economy? But first, spoiler alert, let's go to outer space. Why am I interested in circular economies? I'm part of a research team called the 100-Year Starship that was tasked by the Defense Department 12 years ago to amass, foster, and promote, inspire all the knowledge necessary to enable human spaceflight out of the solar system by 2112. Now, doesn't take much imagination to realize that if you're on Mars or if you're on a starship leaving the solar system, you need to have a circular economy. You need to have everything become new material when it can no longer be what it has to serve. Your pair of pants needs to be a pair of pants for as long as they can be a pair of pants. But when they stop being able to be a pair of pants, what are they supposed to be? If you throw it out of the spaceship, you have lost a resource. So circular economies came to my attention through trying to send people out of the solar system. And the punchline here really is that if you solve it for a starship or for a Mars base, you've actually solved it for any town on Earth. It's just way more fun to solve it for Mars. But that's where my interest in this comes from. And I really like to share this quotation by the leader of the 100-Year Starship Organization, Dr. Mae Jemison, a former astronaut herself, the first African-American woman in space, by the way. She likes to say that what is required for survival in space is what is required for survival on Earth. And that is what motivates me to make solutions for survival on Earth. So a typical product life cycle is linear. It goes from finding the materials, moving those materials around, creating stuff out of those materials. We consume it, we use it, then we dispose of it. It goes into a landfill somewhere and it stays as junk somewhere, useless for the rest of time. This is not a sustainable operation. We've been doing this for too long. We have behaved like this for centuries, and now the bill is due. So we need to put circularity into this, where yes, we still need the raw materials and we still need to move those raw materials into a place where they're useful. But once they have become useful, we need them to stay useful. Cycle where, as I said, the pants, the chair, the machine, the lamp, whatever it is, stays what it is for as long as it can. But we have to design it, we have to think it, we have to use the materials in such a way that when they can no longer be the thing, what does it now become? Everything in nature becomes raw materials for something else when it can no longer be what it is. There is no such thing as waste. All waste is raw material for something else. That's the the mantra. And we can complicate that very quickly. Here's something we use in class, the so-called butterfly diagram from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. On one side, you have the biological cycle. On the other side, you have the technological cycle, where you try and keep things circular. Just think of it simply as molecules going around. It's not really about the pants. It's about the cotton or the polyester. It's not really about the phone. It's about the components in the phone, the metals in the phone, the plastics in the phone. Can they keep going around? And then those plastics become shoes, or metals become spoons. And then what do those spoons become when they can no longer be spoons? But you try and keep them as spoons for as long as you can. In other words, you keep the circularity as tight as possible. And that's what we examine in this class. So you create a loop. You create a loop, and that's a circular economy. You keep things moving in a circle. And you can have the input anywhere you like. It could be the raw material where you source things, but the input can come in as components during manufacturing. You're pulling things out of older products, or the input can come in during the reuse, repair, and recycling portion of this. Doesn't matter. Once it's in the loop, it stays in the loop. Remember the spaceship. If it goes on the ship, it stays on the ship. You can make a quip about the Las Vegas rule. That's fine, as long as you remember that. What goes on the ship stays on the ship. So we're working on projects like this. There's a big initiative on campus about plastic and plastic waste. And what can we do where we stop thinking of plastic as waste? Waste is simply matter in the wrong place. What if we think about it as raw material? Now all those empty bottles are wealth. You can mine for plastic on somebody's beach somewhere. This, by the way, is a picture from Ghana. We had a meeting with a delegation from Ghana that has an enormous plastic bottle problem because they don't have good drinking water, so everybody drinks from plastic bottles. And they produce tons and tons of this. They could start their own textile industry with the plastics these bottles create. So we're engaged with this, and we're trying to engage in a circular textile economy, creating a project that I hope will only take 10 years, but it might be more. I've got about 15 years left in me. So 10 more years, and maybe we can actually achieve this in Rhode Island. And the classes that I'm teaching are actually trying to contribute to this project. So these are not idle exercises. These are not hypotheticals. We're actually using these classes as think tanks. How can we find these solutions? And as I said, you can complicate this really fast. Here's the diagram for a closed loop textile system, but it's basically the same thing. You have the input of the so-called waste. You try to have as little waste come out of it as possible, and then the rest with non-polluting energy sources, you keep it going in a circle. Keep those molecules moving in a circle, keep those products as long as they can, being what they are. So you see, it's a design question too. How can you design for durability? How can you design for longevity? How can you design for minimal waste? So this is where all my hats come together. It's about designing. It's about human behavior. It's about how we relate to things. So it's a very unique thing to be able to examine this in such a constructive and creative way. But then, of course, as I say, you can have as good a design as possible. You can have wonderful ideas and philosophies. If you can't advocate for them, if you can't convince people to follow it, not so good. Now, advocacy is where we actually try to change things. This is where we aim to influence the behavior of stakeholders, of end users, of politicians, of industrialists. We try to change the economic and social system in a way that is for the common good. And we think about agency. We think about what can we do? What choices can we make? How can we challenge the structures that we live inside in such a way that changes those structures for the better, even while we are inside them? And we talk about citizen agency. You don't have to be a politician. You don't have to be an industrialist. You don't have to be a billionaire to make change in the world. You just have to have a voice, logic, and knowledge. And so we go through what is called the advocacy planning cycle. We have something called the advocacy toolkit that we're using in the course. And when you go around this circle, where are we? What do we need to change? Who do we need to convince? Who do we collaborate with? What is the actual logic we're using and how do we deliver that? And then you step back, you review, and what have we now achieved? Where are we now? We're back at that point. So there's an actual circularity to the advocacy itself. You spiral upward, you keep making change, asking yourself, what do I do next? There's the front page of the advocacy toolkit. We actually use a toolkit that was used in terms of sustainable food systems. We heard about the project on food insecurity just a couple of minutes ago. And then there's a really fun part here, and let me close with this. The student groups will actually present their work at an event on Earth Day on April 22nd, a textile sustainability forum that we're running with the Rhode Island Textile Innovation Network, which is a conglomerate of Rhode Island industrialists in the textile field. And that's where the senators and politicians and industrial partners and other faculty members and so on will be there. And we will deliver the students' work to these influencers. So this is not an academic exercise, if you will. The students will actually engage with policymakers presenting their ideas to them. And they'll actually do it twice. They'll do it as teams at the event, and then their final projects will be of their own choice, and they will be collected into a dossier and also delivered. So those could be, as I say, we'll do the textile event, but then if you're interested in thinking about what does this mean in the medical field, what does this mean in the agricultural field, what does this mean in a military context, I don't know, what do you want to do? You can write a paper on it, and that paper will go into the dossier, and we will deliver your ideas. So thanks very much for your attention. Hope to see you on Mars or Lippitt Hall, whichever comes first, and good luck to you and congratulations.
Dr. Asplund, we have a couple of questions. You have sparked the interest of at least a handful of students through this session. Couple of questions are, when can this class be taken? And another question I have is, do you mostly have upper level students in this class? Any underclass students, or what's the population like? And have you taught it before?
Yes. No, I have not taught this class before, but last year I taught a class called From Mars to South County, which was about circular economies in textiles. That was a 200 level class. So that was pitched at a sophomore level. This one is a 400 level class. So technically it's a senior class, but I do have students at every level in the class. And so it really is a question of how daring are you? And do you want to go in for the deep dive? Come on in. I mean, I'm certainly not going to close any gates. So, but the idea here is that we want you to be confident in what you're doing. And but if you come into the class at any level, I feel very comfortable working with students, freshmen and upward. It might be a little bit more you might need to do a little bit more basic reading to just sort of get into the flow of things, but it wouldn't worry me.
Excellent. And then another question I have is kind of a little bit about more your perspective on teaching honors classes like this.
Yes.
So your academic background when you came to the university was in the textiles, fashion merchandising and design program. Is that true?
Yes, it was. I actually went and got my PhD in anthropology while I was at the university as an adjunct professor.
Mm-hmm. And so when you're teaching honors courses like this, can you talk about what it's like having a cross section of students from all different academic disciplines and kind of how that works in the classroom?
Yes, that's a fascinating thing, and it's a very rewarding thing, both for me and I'm sure I speak for other instructors, but it's also very rewarding for the students, because you can imagine diving into a project like this, and next to you is a psychology major, and here is an engineering major, and over there is a business student, and you get those perspectives on the project. which is not only very much what you're going to get after you graduate and you're working as a professional, but it also allows you to have an education while you're in the program and in the class that, well, for want of a better word, is multidimensional. You get the business perspective, the psychology perspective, the pharmacy perspective, the engineering perspective, just in the conversations in class. And it's a fascinating thing, and it's really rewarding for a teacher to have a group like that. I can't say enough about that.
Wonderful, thank you. So on behalf of myself and all the several hundred plus people here in the room, thank you, Dr. Asplund, for sharing that with us. And at this point in time, I do want to kick it off with a question that I have for Dr. DeBruin, but I also want to reopen it up to the entire group. If there are any questions that you would like to have answered by Dr. Asplund, Dr. DeBruin, or any of the students you have heard from, please feel free to drop them in the chat now. But Dr. DeBruin, I've heard you mention, and I also saw referenced in the chat a time or two, you talking about future plans for the honors program and things that might be coming down the pike that honestly are probably even unknown to me right now. Do you mind sharing a couple of those highlights with the rest of us?
Yeah, sure. There's multiple exciting things that are coming down the pike. Probably the one that's going to be the most immediate for you all, and that you all will be able to take advantage of quite quickly, is what we're calling honors contracts. So we have submitted the paperwork to have what we call honors contracts to be approved. And so we're just going through it. There's a whole faculty senate curricular process that has to be respected. So it's going to take a little bit of time. But hopefully within a year, these will be approved. And actually, Dr. Aspelund's done a fair amount of work on these honors contracts, so he might be better poised to explain them. But before he explains them, let me just talk about, you asked me two or three things. The second thing that you all will experience also within your honors program is that we are transitioning. We're actually applying. By the end of this month, we'll submit an application to become an honors institute. So we'll no longer be an honors program, just an honors program with an honors sort of ecosystem. We're actually going to become an honors institute. And that's going to have major budget increases, major infrastructure support, and really a lot of exciting opportunities for honors students. And then the third thing that I had mentioned already was that we're transitioning to a 30 credit program. And this 30 credit program is going to have a changemaker curriculum to it, which is about 12 credits. It's going to have a roughly 12 to 15 credit sort of honors elective possibility, where you can do honors work within your majors. Or you can design your own honors adventure, and then there'll be an honors project component to it. But the honors contracts, because I've seen a lot of questions about like research opportunities, the honors contracts are going to be great opportunities for you to do supplemental research. And Carl, you want to talk about the honors contracts?
Yes, thank you. So honors contracts are a process that about 60-something% of honors programs in the US already do. So it's a proven successful model. And you can think about it as an independent study within a class. So let's say I'm teaching a class. Okay, another class I teach is called What is Good Design? It's not an honors class. But let's say you're an honors student and you want to take that for honors credit. You can come to me and say, hey, Carl, that good design class you do, I want to do that for honors credit. So then we figure out a project that you can do in addition to the coursework in that class, not just more coursework, in addition to. So you have some larger project, some research project, some tangent you can go down, something we agree on is a good idea. So it could be a win-win for me and for you as a student. We make a contract about what this project is going to be. We make checkpoints in it. There's a moment where we meet once a month, once a week, midterm, whatever. and you deliver something at the end of the course. You do all the other coursework, of course, and you have to do that satisfactorily, but you also deliver this additional work. So now, once we've evaluated that, we say, hey, that's great. Look at this additional work for what is good design. Now we can give you that for honors credit. So you can do this with any professor who agrees to do an honors contract with you. And we will, as we transition into an institute, also develop something we're calling distinguished honors faculty. And these are faculty that are honors level, if you will. And those will be very approachable toward honors contracts, but technically you can do this with any professor on campus, and you can get honors credit, therefore, for any course. This makes getting through the honors program much easier, especially for students who are in rigid programs where there's a very prescribed path through the program. You can go to your professors and say, hey, can I do this for honors credit? Is that fair, Karen? Did I leave anything out?
Nope, you're good.
I'm good. Okay, thank you.
The next question I want to address came from, let me see, I'm trying to find it. It was from Carolyn about when class selections will open for honors students. So if you are an incoming first-year student at the University of Rhode Island, then part of the next steps include, placing your enrollment and housing deposit with the University of Rhode Island of $500 by May 1st. Should you decide to do that, then part of the next steps after that will involve signing up for a summer orientation session, which is a 2-day, 1 overnight program that takes place during the month of June on our campus. As a part of that orientation session, you'll have your first in-person meeting with your academic advisor. And part of that will be selecting the classes that you are going to take during your first semester at the university. So your advisor would already know that you had been invited to be a part of the honors program, and you would just let them know at that meeting that, yes, you wanted to start taking an honors class your first semester, and that's kind of how you would hit the ground running within the program. Karen, is there anything else I'm missing as far as the onboarding to the program, or did that generally cover it?
I was reading a comment while you were, I was thinking about how to answer to a comment when you were talking, so I'm just going to say yes.
Great. I think I did a good job. Let's see.
I think that it sounded good.
Yeah, there you go. That's all that counts, right?
Steve, Steve, Andy Simmons here. Can I just jump in real quick?
Oh, of course, please do, Andy.
On that question. So I'm Andy Simmons. I'm the pre-health advisor within honors, but I also am an honors advisor. During orientation, you will meet with your assigned academic advisor. You can also meet with an honors advisor during your orientation session and learn a little bit more about the courses available and talk about your interest in the program. So I just wanted to add that in, that there's that extra layer of support when you come to orientation directly from honors.
That's great. Thank you, Andy. Let's see. Then we had, and Karen, I know you talked about this a little bit earlier in a response you had to a question, but Robbie was asking if there are any additional financial aid opportunities for being in the honors program. And so I'll give the admission answer, but then Karen, you can add the fine print. So the admission answer is no. The merit-based scholarship that you received from the University of Rhode Island, if you were eligible for one, does not get added on to if you are admitted to the honors program. The merit-based scholarship is just the merit-based scholarship. There will be additional financial aid coming out hopefully soon. Many of you may be going through the process right now of completing the new FAFSA. If you have not done that yet, please do that soon. Please complete the FAFSA as early as you are able to do so. We anticipate getting financial aid information to you based upon the FAFSA information by the end of March. And that is when you will know precisely down to the dollar what your cost of attendance will be at the University of Rhode Island. But Karen, admission answer aside, you want to add on some funding information?
Yeah, so we do have scholarships in honors once you're in the program. They're not huge, but 2,500 here, 3,000 there. And we just received a very generous donor. I don't know that it's been publicly announced yet, but I'll go ahead and say it. We've just received $100,000 for it's called the Black Scholarship for nonprofit work in Rhode Island. And so for students that are juniors or seniors that are interested in going into nonprofits, there is so that goes into the endowment, and then the interest from that endowment is what we will use to give the scholarships. So it's probably going to be like what $2,500 that will go towards a student, a qualified student that's interested in doing nonprofit work. But we have some other scholarships like that. More importantly, though, I would really encourage students to very early sort of research, look up, go visit the National Office for Fellowships and Academic Opportunities, because that office is an office that can, like big national fellowships are things that you build towards. And so what we typically encourage you to do is your freshman year, start to sort of figure out what is this office and what do they do. Sophomore year, apply for the smaller scholarships, more local ones. And when I say smaller and more local, sometimes those are quite sizable. I mean, there's a foreign language fellowship for study abroad where students that gives preference to URI students. About 10 URI students are selected every year, and that gives between $15,000 to $18,000 for study abroad experience. But that's sort of like a lower level fellowship that then if you get that, then you can apply for, for sort of some of these top tier national fellowships and academic opportunities, like the Fulbright, for example, is one that you may have heard of. I won't rattle off a bunch of names that we won't necessarily know, but this is a great office for funding opportunities.
Thank you, Karin.
Mm-hmm.
And now I just want to say that I'm answering a couple questions that are still popping up in the chat. But if there is no other questions that need being addressed by Doctors DeBruin and Aspelund and any of our other students, I do want to say thank you to all our attendees. Thank you to the staff members. And if you just want to hang tight, you got a little taste of Dr. Andy Simmons there as he chimed in with an answer to one of our questions. I'm going to take a couple-minute break. And then we're going to turn things over to Dr. Simmons, where he's going to give about a 20-minute overview of the URI pre-health advising program for any students who may be interested in pursuing graduate degrees in healthcare. So if that's you, stay on and we'll get going with that in a couple minutes. But other than that, thank you all so much, everybody, for being here. Those of you who are going to stay on, we'll talk to you again in a couple minutes.
Yes, it's exactly what she wants. Perfect. All right. I'm glad we have exactly what you want. Quick introduction to myself. Well, actually, before I do that, let me just say this is about our pre-health advising program. This is me on the top, Andrew Simmons, but I go by Andy or, Dr. Simmons, which a lot of students will call me. I am an assistant director in the honors program, but I also run the pre-health advising. And I'm also involved in honors advising. So my work is to sort of overall management of the program, direct advising for students who are sophomores, juniors, seniors, as well as recent alumni. And I chair what's called our Health Professions Advisory Committee, which is a committee of faculty who, in essence, assist applicants who are heading towards med school and a couple of other professions through a pre-application process that we have. So it's a really nice, really robust way that we support applicants to those programs. Aisha Marino is also an advisor in pre-health. She works specifically with freshmen and is basically just also on that committee that I just mentioned. And Asia is also an advisor in honors. So we actually kind of cross between honors and pre-health. We're in Lippert Hall, same location as the honors program. If you want to write to me, that's my email address, ansimmons@uri.edu. And then that's our website, which I'm actually going to I'm going to show you some of that towards the end of this quick presentation. A little bit more about me. I've been at URI about almost 8 years. I've done pre-health professions advising at 2 other institutions. I've done it as an independent advisor. I've been involved in college student affairs in the past. I've been involved in academic advising at a couple of other institutions. I've run a career center, so done a lot of different things. And I consider myself pretty well versed in just helping students make that leap from college to figuring out how your work in college is going to help you make that leap and prepare you well for these types of careers. Okay, so what exactly do we mean by pre-health? So at URI, this is for students aspiring to clinical health as well as academic requirements and experiential learning as a condition for specifically the very highly competitive fields, which include medicine, dentistry, optometry, podiatry, physician assistant, and some others. The bulk of the students who work with our office are aspiring to medicine and looking at dentistry and any others that are on this list. And I put veterinary medicine here because it's not unusual for someone interested in vet med to be in touch with me about their plans. But again, there's a lot of support over in the animal and veterinary science program. So that's that. If you're going into the BSN program, the nursing program, if you're going into the PharmD program, the pharmacy program, those are different programs, and generally I don't interact very much with students from those programs unless they decide to change careers, which does happen. So a little bit more about what pre-health is. So when you come to URI, and this is what it's going to look like at a lot of schools, your academic program is going to have these 3 components. Your major, general education, all of this within the context of a 120 credit program. So of the 120 credits you're going to do in college at URI, a good amount of that is going to be the major, 40-ish credits of general education, and then pre-health is going to overlap with that. So you see, pre-health itself is not a major. It's a group of courses like in chemistry and biology, physics, math, statistics, some humanities and social sciences that may overlap with your major a lot, or maybe not a lot. So for example, if you come in and you're going to do something like biological sciences or cell and molecular biology, pharmaceutical sciences or neuroscience, there's a lot of overlap. If you're going to be a history major, as one of our applicants did recently, there's very little overlap with pre-health, but it's very possible to do. And then the pre-health courses, of course, will overlap your general education requirements. And just to be clear about what general education is, these are courses that you take that are about the breadth of learning that you do in college. So if you're a biology major or a psychology major, you're still expected to do things like become a really good writer, know something about the different areas of the humanities, the social sciences, the arts, and that kind of thing. Develop other kinds of skills as well. And in fact, a lot of honors courses are really a great place to do general education requirements. And in addition to these curricular areas, you will, outside of that, engage in things that help you learn about the profession you're interested in. And that would be in things that are clinically related. So in a hospital or an outpatient setting or something like that. Getting involved in research or scholarship at URI, of which there's many opportunities. and that I generally encourage people to do, because all of these health professions are based on science at the end of the day. And not just lab science, but other areas as well. If you have more of a public health interest, there's the kind of research you're going to do that's more about populations, for example. Community service is a great thing to look at and be involved in if you're interested in health careers. Leadership is something that is really valued in the health professions. So these are sort of broad areas, but our students, and I'm going to show you some examples towards the end here, find different ways of getting involved in that. I see there's a lot of questions coming up, so what I'm going to do is actually hold off on trying to answer those right off, just so I can get through the flow and answer all your questions. Steve, is that cool? If you need to stop me for some reason, please do.
You go right
all right.
ahead. We'll circle back as things are relevant. Yeah.
All right, cool. Okay, more about our program. So it's based in the honors program, but open to all URI students and recent alumni. Again, it's not a major. We do not have a pre-medical or pre-PA major. You major in whatever you want, and you complete those requirements that you need to be an applicant for those different professions. What do we do exactly? Well, it's a lot of individual advising. So you can meet with me or Asia individually. We have peer mentors who are experienced pre-health students. We have a lot of support once you get to the point of applying. A couple of different tracks that we work on. One of those involves the Health Professions Advisory Committee. Each of those pathways is going to entail a certain amount of coaching that I will help you with throughout the process, support for your essays, your interviews, and all that kind of thing. Looking for internships, volunteering, and research. This is something that you proactively will do as a pre-health student, but that we will provide assistance with, particularly in terms of narrowing down what you should be looking for. And this is very important. Finding things that aren't advertised, that aren't listed. So that whole process is something that we're going to work with you on, because many of the things that pre-health students find that are very good are not necessarily things that are advertised. We have online resources, weekly newsletter, lots of workshops and events. And we have a couple of special, I call them admission routes, but I like to think of them as agreements with the Brown University Alpert Medical School and the Johnson and Wales PA program. So let me quickly explain what these are. So Brown has a special opportunity for Rhode Island students, specifically Providence College or Rhode Island College, to apply for an early contingent admission as competitive. But if you've done really well and you're right on track for your pre-med studies, you apply to be nominated by our Health Professions Committee. And if you're nominated, you go forward with an application to Brown, again, at the beginning of your junior year. If you're admitted, there's no MCAT. So it's really kind of a nice route if you have done very well, articulation is a little bit different. So this is simply a guaranteed strong PA applicant who's met a certain GPA criteria and has a certain, you've met the academic requirements. We will nominate you for a guaranteed interview when you apply to PA school. and this is huge because PA school, people see PA and they think physician assistant. They think, oh, that's great, you know, work as much as a doctor, and it's actually every bit as competitive as medical school. So getting one interview is huge. So I think this is a great opportunity that that was worked out with Johnson and Wales, and that many of our students take advantage of. Okay, a little bit more about pre-health. We have a number of clubs and organizations on campus that are student run and that provide sort of peer support. So that includes clubs for pre-meds, pre-dental, pre-PA, pre-PT, and a few others. There's an organization called Seeds of Success that's housed in the College of Environment and Life Sciences, and that is specifically for students who come from backgrounds traditionally underrepresented in healthcare and science. First generation students and others category. And it's a really great support system group. We on campus an emergency medical technician and work as an EMT on the URI campus. Many research opportunities. We run an event that's roughly every 1 to 2 years called Pre-Health Experience Night. It's a big networking event with alumni and other people in the healthcare community in Rhode Island. We run a guided study group for, we call this is test prep, but it's really MCAT. So when you're at the point of taking the MCAT as a pre-med, we have a peer support group that I nominally sort of convene, but is actually run by students and recent alumni. You know about the honors program, TAs, tutoring, RAs. There's just a lot of different things here that can be helpful to you. And we run roughly 20 workshops, info sessions each year, or more. I mentioned these two in blue applicant pathways. The sort of standard applicant pathway that we support, and this is generally for juniors, seniors, and recent alumni. Basically what I call our application prep program. And I think of it as having 3 tracks. Track A is specifically for medical, dental, optometry, and podiatry schools, because those routes are supported by our Health Professions Advisory Committee. And that's basically, you do a pre-application, you give it to the committee, you go through an interviewing process with the committee. Essentially, it's like a pre-application process. And at the end of that process, the committee composes a letter of recommendation to those schools on your behalf, which actually is the chair of the committee I write, but based on direct feedback from the committee. So that's a really great way for you to get support for your applications. PA schools don't really need that committee letter, but I provide basically an application coaching process that involves working on your personal statement, assessing the schools you should be applying to, being sure you're applying early, which again that's also part of track A, and this Johnson and Wales early contingent, not early contingent, the Johnson and Wales guaranteed interview thing. Track C is sort of anyone else, which is not a huge number of folks that we deal with, but if you are interested in something other than PA, medicine, dentistry, optometry, and podiatry, we can help you with that. And I put direct entry nursing up here because you can actually become a nurse practitioner without doing a BSN. So if you're a bio major, a psychology major, any major other than nursing, there are routes for you to become a nurse practitioner, and we work with folks on that. Many of our applicants do not go directly into these health profession schools after graduating. And that's just a function of how competitive these programs are And because in general, to get right to one of those programs after you graduate directly, you have to be ready to apply by about the middle of your junior year, and towards the end of your junior year. And many folks just aren't really ready at that point. And again, with a highly competitive process, with a very competitive national applicant pool, it's often a good idea to get some more coursework under your belt, some more experience under your belt before you apply. And this is part of the reason we continue to support people even after they graduate from URI. This is on our website, but just to
Stop
give you a
talking.
sense of outcomes, um,
Actually, stop talking.
over basically this, what is this, 6-year period, I guess, 6 application cycles. People always ask, like, how many people get in and where do they go? And it's the ratios are pretty good. The percentages are pretty good. They're very representative of the fact that most people kind of don't apply till they're really ready and really have strong credentials for the application process. And so as a result, the numbers are good, but I will also say that many of those students have been meeting with me, sort of talking over their plans over a sustained period of time, and really just trying to get a sense of like, okay, when am I going to be ready, and what should I do, and all that kind of thing. So this is sort of the outcome of that process. And as you see, this PA is the second biggest of these groups. And there are other professions that people are applying to as well. And in terms of where people go, for medical school, it's really all over the map. It's pretty much almost everywhere in the Northeast and in New York and Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and that tends to just be representative of our demographics. A lot of our students are from the Northeast, and so many of them just end up wanting to go to medical school in the Northeast. That doesn't mean that, we haven't had people who've gone further afield, and we certainly have. The same is true with the PA programs and the dental programs. One thing I want to call your attention to is our website, and I'm actually going to share that right now. And you can do this on your own free time. Just hang in there 1 second. There we go. Sorry, hang on 1 second. Apologies for the dead air. I'll come back here and share the screen. So it's got this big picture here, and I would encourage people to first look at this top menu. This is sort of details that application prep aspect that I was talking about if you're interested. And this is more of an overview of the program. But down here, we have this link to our alumni profiles. If you want to learn more about what our students do while they're here and what they do during that short time, maybe after college, feel free to go to our website and just take a look. It's really quite a strong variety of activities and work and academics. I go to Matt for starters, because here's a guy who was really involved in men's club lacrosse. He maybe started pre-med a little later in his career, was a strong student, graduated Phi Beta Kappa, but just needed some more experience. And he also needed a little more time to just work on the MCAT. So he ended up working in Hartford as an EMT, and then came back to Rhode Island and was a infectious disease research assistant. And I think he was actually involved in some of the COVID vaccine clinical trials and did really well in the admission process. And I think speaks the kind of experience he had along with this academic record speaks well to what he did at URI and beyond. Isabella went on to NYIT College of Osteopathic Medicine, and she just did a lot of stuff at URI, biological sciences and a French major. So she's a double major. She was an EMT. She got some funding for summer research. You see she did a bunch of other things here, including volunteering and at one of the free clinics in Providence. And then she did the NIH, there's an NIH summer program that students can do for 1 year after graduating from college. So she went down and did that. So really just built a great foundation for herself at URI. Then we're interested in like PA. Renee, sort of close to home, took a little time after college and worked as a medical assistant. Did the Johnson and Wales interview, got admitted there, and there she is in her white coat. So those are just some things you can take a look at on our website if you want to get a deeper dive, which I would encourage you to do. And that is my presentation. Steve, I'm going to turn it over to you and just if you can just curate all the questions that have been coming in, I'm happy to answer them.
Sure, Andy. So thank you. So there were just a couple of questions that I think I answered a couple of them as they came through in the chat, but also nice to see Renee's face up there, former URI tour guide, whom I get to work with.
Yes, right.
So that's good for me. But one question that I did not know the answer to, or how about this? I think I know the answer, but I want to be sure, was asked by a person about if the pre-health program is also designed for students who want to go into psychiatry and gain acceptance to a medical school to achieve that goal. My thought is, generally speaking, we have a lot of students major in psychology, the Bachelor of Science route, if they're interested in going into psychiatry. And I understand it might be a different application process, but I just wanted to be certain about that.
So you may, if you're going to be in psychiatry, it's definitely medical school, and you have to be a pre-med. Yes, I would say look at psychology as a major, or potentially clinical neuroscience as a major. There's definitely many avenues that you could take. But you're going to have to be pre-med. You're going to have to go to medical school. So you're going to have to get into medical school. We provide plenty of support for that throughout your time at URI. And the way that works is psychiatry, again, it's an MD or DO. You can go to the osteopathic medical schools or the MD programs. You have to match into a psychiatry residency after you finish medical school. So you do all the medical stuff, and then as you get into your 3rd and 4th year, you work with your advisors at the medical school that you got into to be sure that you are getting the right kinds of elective rotations. Because one of the things you do in medical school is you do 2 years of clinical training through different specialties and through all the primary care areas. And one of those is psychiatry. But then you have the opportunity to do elective rotations, particularly and especially in places where you think you might want to become matched. So one thing you can do now, if you want to learn more about this, is just read up on what the National Match Program is, how that works, and all that kind of thing. But again, you still have to be pre-med and you have to get into medical school.
Excellent, thank you. And then we just had a question about the PT process, and I actually know that, but if you can fact check me on that a little bit too. So the question was, do you apply to the grad school portion of physical therapy during your junior year? And if you are not accepted, can you try again? So the process for PT, unless you're in the accelerated program, I believe the application process takes place during the senior year at the university.
Right. So that works the same as all these other processes. So we have that our internal early contingent program through kinesiology, and actually also through biological sciences, if you're a biological sciences major. But the very standard thing that people do with PTs is major in kinesiology, and then if you want to go directly to PT school following graduation in the regular application process, you would spend, just like you would with any other health profession, a portion of the spring term pre-writing your application essays, pre-writing your work and experiences, contacting your letter of recommendation folks. The application usually opens in July, I believe. It's a national application service. So it's a lot like all the other health professions that way. It's just, it maybe starts a little bit later. Um, Not quite as hyper competitive as some of them, but still pretty competitive. And if you're in the kinesiology major, the beauty of that is they really bake in this way for you to get practical experience through their 12 credit 1 semester internship. So it's a really nice way to do pre-PT. But
Certainly.
you could do any major and do pre-PT if you want.
Yeah. And for PT specifically, I know we do have our own graduate program at the University of Rhode Island,
do.
but we also have students who go all over the place for the doctoral portion of that degree as well.
All over the place. Yep.
I knew a student who did their graduate portion with West Point and actually became a physical therapist for the Army and doing some pretty cool things like that. So there's really neat stuff you can get into. But a question from Greta about if you can follow URI's pre-med track while majoring in biology and minoring in psychology, that would certainly seem something that's reasonable. I would say, Andy, I see you nodding your head, so that seems like a yes.
Sure, or you may consider the clinical neuroscience major because it really combines both. The clinical neuroscience track has a science component that's actually covers a lot of a certain number of the pre-med requirements already. And then it has a core component of courses that are both in neuro and in psychology. So it's really a good idea to take a look at that as well.
Yeah. And then the last question I see right now is just about specifically Brown University and how many students typically are successful at getting into Brown Med through URI. So I know the early identification program is strictly for Rhode Island residents. That's
Yes.
specifically a URI to Brown pipeline for Rhode Island residents.
Yes.
But overall, do we send other people to Brown ever?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So if you're a strong medical school applicant, we tend to find that a lot of our strongest applicants who do well in the application process end up going to Brown as their top choice. They get into medical school because we have a lot of students from Rhode Island. So we have a certain number who do get in through the early admission track, but then a large number in the regular cycle end up there as well. They might have gotten into a couple of other medical schools and they just decide to go to Brown. And then I'll say our second biggest school is the University of New England College of Osteopathic Medicine up in Portland, Maine. And if you haven't heard of osteopathic medicine, and you've heard me mention it a few times, it's a different branch of medicine, but leads at this point in time to pretty much the same place as MD. For example, MDs and DOs end up going through the same residency process at this point. And we just find that, because a lot of students want to stay in the region, that becomes a top choice for them as well. But if you look at our website, you'll see the list of all the places where our students have gone.
And then one more, just if you could elaborate on the process for dermatology, do you find that there's a particular major that students gravitate towards or particular place for their med school portion that we end up sending students specifically for dermatology?
So let me say something really general about this and addressing also the question about psychology. These are medical specialties. So dermatology is a specialty of medicine that basically you need to go to medical school to do it. You go to any medical school. So the first step is just being a really great pre-med and doing really well at URI. There's no way for us to say like, oh yeah, if you come to URI and do A, B, and C, you're definitely going to get into dermatology. That's much more of a medical school thing, just like what I said about psychology, except that dermatology is way more competitive. So first step, get into medical school. Second step, do really well in medical school, work with your advisors in medical school, get involved in research. That's generally a good thing to do anyway as an undergraduate, and you can actually do that in medical school as well. And as you get into your third and fourth year, and you're angling towards a dermatology residency, that's kind of when all of that plays out. Now, with that said, just a little piece of advice for those of you who have really specific ideas about medicine, like I'm going to be a dermatologist or a psychologist or a surgeon or this or that. My advice to you would be to take a broader look at medicine, and really think about medicine and as a broad field in which you might do any number of things, because that's really what the med schools are interested in. If dermatology is the thing that is in making you more interested in medical school, well, by all means, you could do some of your learning in college could be oriented towards that because that's your interest. But the med schools are really looking more generally at applicants and who they think is going to be a great doctor, not necessarily who they think is going to be a great dermatologist or a great psychiatrist, because a lot of people who come into medical school thinking that they're going to go in one direction, just like with college, actually, kind of end up going in a different direction. And I could talk about that all day long, but I have known of people who started on one track and ended up doing something completely different than they said they were going to do. So it's really good to keep an open mind about it, and really understand medicine as more holistically than at this stage than as like one particular specialty. So that's my sermon for the day.
No, it's perfect. And I think that's probably a great place for us to wrap things up. I don't see any other fresh questions in the chat. So I do want to thank all of you who stayed with us for this entire time. It's going on near 2 hours now. So good for you all for this Zoom marathon to cap your Monday evening. But I'm just dropping my personal email address in the chat. It's just sferguson@uri.edu. If there are any questions anyone has about literally anything, even if I am not your admission counselor, you came to this and you know me now. So you can feel free to reach out to me at any point in time. And if I'm not the person who can answer the question, I can always direct you to who can. So Andy, if you just want to say a quick thank you, and then Carl, I also see you. If you just want to say a quick thank you as well, we'll wrap things up in just a moment.
Thank you.
Yep.
I put my email in the chat as well.
All right. Thank you all so much. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. Take care, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you. Have a good
Bye-bye.
night.